think it stemmed from me wanting to be different. I was doing black and grey when I started off my career, and I can remember being at a show and my client was queuing up in this sea of black and grey pieces, and I just looked and I thought, I'm just getting lost here. I need to do something different. I mean, I designed to make the most badass tattoo ever, and wow factor. I want to always try and create something different, something eye-catching. From an early age, I thought they were rubbish tattoos. I was 16 at school. My friends, what do you think of this? Obviously getting tattooed illegally, and because I could draw, I'd be like, wow, that's terrible. So my thoughts on tattoos were like, oh, if that's what tattoos are, I don't want to get any.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Alex Lloyd and this is a 21st Century Tattoo.
Rich, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thanks for having me down.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries at all. Right, let's get kicked off. So, I mean, as myself and I'm sure many of other artists would agree, you are producing this world-class work in your own kind of trademark style. I guess the first thing I want to know is, what do you define that style as?
It varies a lot, My older stuff, kind of a geometric trash surrealism, and I get influenced quite easily. Don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I follow a lot of top colour realism guys and think, I need to push it more that direction. I don't want to get left behind in the, in that kind of skill area. So I'll, veer to more colour realism. Well, surrealism, I'd probably do.
Yeah, a bit surrealist, yeah.
Yeah, but I always try and make it a bit more abstract rather than, straight up realism, because I think, although I appreciate a lot of it, I think it lacks a bit of creativity. So I always try and put a little twist on it or something. So geo, trash, surrealism. I'm going back into the geometric stuff because I haven't been doing it for the last couple of years consistently, because I had this idea of doing it in 3D and I've got a certain thing I wanted to do, and there's Darwin Enriquez. He does 3D. There's Tofi, who works in Rybnik in Poland, and Jacob Sheffield works at Elysium Studios. They're the only guys I'm seeing do this really cool 3D tattooing. So anyway, finally I booked into Tofi's. We did a one-to-one seminar, and he taught me how to do the things. I asked him 3 years ago, but it finally happened the other week. And now he's given me kind of the tools. I can get going with this new evolution of the style.
And what is that? What's that main thing that you kind of took from that?
So I put a lot of geometric patterns over faces. I wanted to create a more like a geometric shape and have that light cast onto a face or whatever object I wanted, and I could manipulate it along with the colours. Yeah. And Tofi taught me some other bits as well, how I can take my geometric shapes out of faces, like I can cut chunks into things and have the patterns coming out of them as well. So, you can rotate them to whichever angle you need for the composition and it looks all natural. I'm not doing it on a 2D kind of Procreate system where I'm kind of limited. And I think I was stuck on that kind of thing a few years back.
Yeah. Once you
I just needed the tools. And I'm not one of these that can sit. Everybody's got a different way of learning. I can't sit for hours watching YouTube stuff and pulling two bits out. I haven't got the attention span for that. I need someone to sit next to me and go, do this, and me
and then
go.
You learn through doing it.
Yeah, I can learn super quick that way. So.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I mean, going back to what you were saying there, about light sourcing and stuff. You got a really kind of clever use of light sourcing. Your color palette is really, really inspiring. We'll get onto a little bit more onto that kind of design process in a bit. Yeah. But I guess what I really wanted to know, how do you view tattooing as part of your life?
Well, it is a lifestyle, isn't it? I don't think if you want to go far and have a good career. I don't think you can just do it as a job. I think you have to live it. A lot of, everyone in our studio and all my friends who I see on the road, it is just a lifestyle. You live and breathe it. Even at home, I mean.
Do you take it home with you?
I do. I'll have a film on in the background and I'll just mess around with some stuff. You should switch off, yeah, but I enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? I'm always thinking of ideas and I'll put it down on Procreate or now I'm using this 3D software. So yeah.
3D, AI, that sort of thing.
Yeah. The AI,
that.
yeah. AI is good for reference. It's one of those things, isn't it, AI? I think it's fantastic for reference if you use it in the right way.
I've only really seen it quite recently, people really starting to use it. And yeah, I think it's impressive. We'll get onto that. But yeah, so let's talk about kind of where you draw your inspiration from for these pieces. I guess that's kind of, I really want to understand that. And I think there's a lot of people who kind of follow your work that would love to know that. How do you go about kind of creating these things? And are these concepts that you're kind of basing off real life inspiration, or what is it?
I think inspiration, I get inspired by, it could be this sounds stupid, a crack in the pavement. I was in Venice once and with Paul Talbot, I don't know whether you know, good friend of mine, great artist. And he'd take photos of the most random things and he just, he opened up my mind a little bit into, just that creative part. And this crack, he took a picture in the pavement. We put it in Photoshop, posterized it. We've used it to create flow and stuff. So literally anything from that, take a picture of it. I get inspired by other people's tattoos, but I like to really spin it so you'd never in a million years guess I took inspiration from that, because one thing that gets under my skin is copying. And I guess we're all guilty of it in a way, but I think there's a way to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Are you talking about kind of like straight up imitation where you can kind of see that the work?
Yeah, and we all fall into we can fall into those traps where we love something that much we produce something that's the same and we're not aware of it. But
even like subconsciously,
yeah. And you could see a piece from 2 years ago and then you could rehash it and think, oh, that's good. But you've really taken it from that. So I'd make extra efforts to try and change it completely, take inspiration, then flip it and, create an original piece.
Yeah, nice. Mate, you featured in Total Tattoo magazine and Ink Mag. Tell me a little bit more about how that kind of came to be.
Total Tattoo. Yeah, I think Perry approached me a few years back.
Because I think for a lot of artists, like to get yourself into a magazine like that, and get your kind of work showcased at that level, like you're obviously doing something right. Is that was that always a goal for you, or was it something that just kind of happened naturally?
It just happens naturally. I think it stemmed from me wanting to be different. I was doing black and grey when I started off my career, and I can remember being at a show and my client was queuing up in this sea of black and grey pieces, and I just looked and I thought, I'm just getting lost here. I need to do something different. And then I was getting tattooed by Florian Karg, which opened my mind into better composition and flow. And Timur Lysenko, I've said this many times in a lot of interviews, he really just flipped it for me. I was like, wow, I need to pull my finger out. And he was my main inspiration. So at the start, like I just mentioned, I did create something similar. I saw his use of like an Eastern European tapestry, like a pixelated pattern. Right, I can't use that. But I loved his opaque grey work, his opaque grey faces. So, I wanted to do something like that. I'm a portrait artist. And the next best thing to that was geometric patterns, and I can use loads of different ones. And then I started to add colour. So I used Timur's style as a base. I thought, this is incredible. Tried to change it up and then tried to move away from it as far as I can, introduce gradients and stuff. And like you say, with magazines, I think if you're doing something different, you're going to be your work's going to be more. It's going to be more noticed and it's going to stand out more, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think your work is kind of instantly recognisable. Do you know what I mean? As your stuff. I mean, I always wonder how you can't ever quite put your finger on what it is that makes it that, but you can see in the way that you're producing the work.
Yeah.
like your style kind of shines through. On a side note, I would love to know, how do you kind of really go about choosing your colour palette? Is there colours that you really like to stick to? Yeah.
There is. I feel safe with the reds, oranges, yellows. I think I did that from the start.
There's a lot of like warm and cooler colours, kind of.
Yes, I've started to mix those as well. I'm well into contrast, so dark and light, detail, non-detail. Like you say, the colour, hot and cold. I think contrast in so many different variants in one piece really makes it pop and people stand up.
Yeah.
And
that's the first thing I noticed about your work, for sure.
Thank you. That's something I've just picked up in seminars. Jeff Gogway, I did his seminar when I was an apprentice, nearly 10 years ago. I flew to Venice and Grado, just little snippets I've learned, and you just put them together in your own way and create.
Yeah, it's sick. It's cool, man. It's good to kind of sit here and pick your brain. We'll talk a bit about kind of the inks and the sponsors and all of those sorts of things in a bit. But for a minute, let's talk about Dark Horse Collective. 2 studios, like Collective and Gallery.
Yeah.
I guess, can you kind of explain to me the vision really for the places and how that kind of, I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording, but how that all kind of came to fruition?
Do you want me to start from the beginning?
Yeah, go on then.
Okay, so Dark Horse, it all stemmed from me and Jamie Lee not working in another studio. Jamie had a few years of experience under his belt. I'd started as an apprentice, and I've always liked doing my own thing, and I struggle to work for people, so I've always been my own boss. But with tattooing, you can't just open a studio. You need to kind of, do the groundwork, do your apprenticeship. And I think it was about a year and a half. I left. Me and Jamie wanted to set up. I found the location. I think I thought of the name. Jamie did the logo. We moved in, and our goal was at the start, to create a nice environment for us both. No drama. We worked really well together, and it was just having a peaceful place to work, just nice and chilled. And then the next thing was to get an artist or two working for us just to cover the bills. How
easy was that? I mean, I don't know much about this area. I'm not from around here. I mean, in terms of like opening the studio and how it looks and that sort of thing, this is quite, I presume this is quite unique for this area. I mean, are there many tattoo studios in the area?
Yeah, there's a few studios in the area. I don't think there's any like this. Different kind of studios, I think with Dark Horse, I like everybody to express themselves and have their own kind of style. I'd never want an artist to come here and I'm pushing them into a certain style because it adds another element to the studio. I want artists to be happy what they're doing. So whatever they choose, let's push it that way. So in that sense, I think we are very different in the area.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. I love the space. I think it's great.
Thank you.
And so, let's talk about workshops and kind of seminars and stuff. I speak to a lot of artists on the podcast about seminars, something that I really want to make a massive effort to get myself into a bit more.
Yeah.
Talk to me about kind of how they sit within your career and kind of what your thoughts are on those.
So, I mean, this studio, so when Jamie and I parted ways, I think it's 2020, I've always had this vision, even when I was working with Jay, and he was well aware that I wanted to create something different, because you see so many studios with piercing, laser. We did used to do that, but I wanted to try and do something different, and it's hard these days, isn't it? So after the complete refurb, I wanted to create a tattoo studio, an art gallery where I've purchased loads of art from my favourite artists over the years. I put it for resale on the walls. So everything on the walls is for sale. So clients come in and they wouldn't, see this art in their everyday life. So, and if they love something, we can pull it off the wall and they can take it home. And also with the workshops, I'm obsessed with learning. Like I say, I was doing a 3D seminar in Poland the other week. I just think you should never stop pushing and pushing. I see so many artists just stay at the level and not evolve, and it's a shame because some of my favourite artists. So for me, just wanting to learn and trying to bring something to this studio where it's well known as like a workshop hub, where I try and get artists and friends in and they do their own thing. I'm just trying to be unique, create something unique from the studio.
I think it's important, isn't it, nowadays?
Yeah.
But I guess in kind of being authentic and being true to yourself, that will always come through. Your uniqueness will come through, and that whether that's in the style or anything else that you kind of manifest in the form of a studio and things like that.
I think studios are always a reflection of the owner's personality. I love art. I'm trying to get into it myself, do more painting. So love looking at art, and I love learning. So, and tattooing. So everything, even the decks, even though that's very part-time, but just, every studio is a reflection of the artist's personality, and hopefully people like it. And yeah,
well, mate, you're obviously a true creative,
Just going to talk to you a little bit about two of the cartridges we've got here from our podcast sponsor, Ghost Cartridges. So these are the original Ghost cartridge. These have been serving the industry for the last 5 years now and still remain one of the leading tattoo cartridges on the market. More recently, they've introduced their Holy Ghost cartridge range. Now this is similar to their original cartridges, but rather than using an O-ring, they use a membrane. You can grab both of these and all other Ghost branded supplies with the code ATFCT10 for 10% off, and that's exclusively at Star.
Let's kind of take it back then to where it kind of all began. Something that I always really like to understand with everyone that I sit down.
Yeah.
Talk to me as far back as you can kind of remember, or at least where you kind of decided that this would be something that you wanted to get into.
Yeah. Easy question.
Yeah.
So I was 10 years old. I was in primary school, and I guess I was always a bit of a businessman, because I can remember selling, because I was probably the best artist in the year, but that's only because I've been drawing from age of 2, and I was obsessed with comic book characters and stuff. So that's all I did was draw. My mum and dad were at work a lot, so I just occupied myself and drew. And we had a badge machine, and I was drawing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for my friend, and I was selling these badges when I was 10. And then one of my friends said, "Oh, can you draw Biro on my arm?" And I was like, yeah, of course. So I drew him these Teenage Turtles on his arm, and I just had a thought then, I could be a tattooist. I could do that.
So it was early.
It was early, but from that age until I was 32, probably 33, I completely forgot about it. It was only in my 30s I started searching, what can I do for myself, my career.
So you say you started tattooing when, in your 30s, really?
Yeah.
What were you doing in that kind of period between school and...
So left school, as everyone does, try and get any job. I think I had a job in computers, and then maybe insulating factories.
Yeah.
And then I got my own business. Like I said, I struggled to work for people, so that those jobs didn't last long. Got my own window cleaning business, which is very good money, but it's not creative. So around the age of 18, 19, I started DJing. The window cleaning was my bread and butter. So actually, in the age of 18, 19, I opened a clothes shop. And at that age, I didn't have any experience. So that probably lasted a year. And then I started a window cleaning business. I worked for a guy for 2 months, watched the workings of it, thought, oh, that's pretty easy. Started my own. That was my bread and butter. That gave me the money to kind of try the projects. I started DJing, club promoting. I started a little T-shirt label over the years, online DJ store. I'd started producing. We've got a record label, not as active as it used to be, but that's on the side. So I've always been looking at doing stuff to get out of the window cleaning.
Yeah.
And what led me into tattooing was the music production, because I could produce music, but it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. It wasn't as good in my eyes to release it. or send it the big label. So I used to go in with an engineer who I had to pay. And it gets an expensive hobby because you don't actually make any money through your tracks. It's when you're touring and DJing. And that's what I thought I wanted. And I quickly realised that being away all the time from my little girl, it probably wasn't the best career move at the time. And
what sort of age are you at this point?
I was late 20s, early 30s, and it got to a point where I was like, I need to do something on my own with a record label. It was 2 other guys with a production. We'd always go in with an engineer. I was always relying on other people. And I've got a lot of drive, and I thought, you know what, I need to do something for myself. And one of my friends told me, I've started tattooing from home. And it just brought back brought back that memory. But he was heavily tattooed. I didn't have a single tattoo. And I thought, you know what? I can do that.
You didn't have any tattoos at this point?
No, because from an early age, I thought they were rubbish tattoos. I was 16 at school. My friends, what do you think of this? You know, obviously getting tattooed illegally. And because I could draw, I'd be like, wow, that's terrible. So my thoughts on tattoos were like, oh, if that's what tattoos are, I don't want to get any. I didn't see any good tattoos on anybody I come into interaction with.
Yeah.
So that was it. I boxed that off. And then when I revisited it when I was 33, whatever, I started watching this Miami Ink, and you watch some of the shows and you're like, oh, actually the tattoos, I know they're not what you can see these days, but I thought, you know what, not bad. LA Ink, I watched all the programs, then started looking at shows. I attended London Tattoo Show. And, you know,
at that point, that's when you really can see.
I thought, yeah. I didn't have a portfolio. I was lucky enough. I had a friend who opened a studio, a businessman. I did a quick sketch of the Hulk. I was like, look, I can draw. I've still got it, actually. It's not very good, but someone who hadn't, you know, drew for 15 years, it's not bad. And a businessman isn't going to turn down free labour. So I was lucky that I self-employed with my window cleaning, and I could do it part-time and make that slow transition and do it full-time. And I think what gave me a lot of confidence is because the artist who were doing these bad tattoos on my friends when I was 16, he was still going. And I thought, wow, well, it sounds really bad. I hate saying this because it's maybe a bit disrespectful, but I knew I could never produce work that bad. So that gave me a lot of confidence into just making the switch, thinking I could make a career of it.
Okay. Yeah, fine. So that kind of affirmed and gave you the confidence for it.
Yeah. But there's different.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements to come into it, and you've obviously got quite an entrepreneurial mindset to have gone through all of those steps before you got there. It's quite an interesting topic, and one I like to explore with a lot of the guests that we have on is some view tattooing as a career and a way to make money with something that they're good at.
Yeah.
Others maybe look at it as just like another medium where maybe they were a painter for years and then it just made more sense to be a tattoo artist. So it's always quite interesting to hear and understand. Let me ask you then, could you pinpoint maybe one person or one moment which maybe transformed your career or the way that you view your career?
I think the booking with Timor, he tattooed my ribs since I had a sleeve and my hand done from him. But it was that moment, I think, where I just knew I wanted to stand out from the crowd and just try and do something different. Yeah. That was a massive moment. Yeah.
What are your kind of the main, not necessarily inspirations, but top kind of 3 artists like right now who you look at and think like they are really leading it?
So Sandra Dashka.
Excluding yourself.
Sandra Dashka, I think she's incredible. Her technique's really good. And what I love about Sandra, she gets a lot done and she doesn't, slip on quality. I'm still watching her now to try and, figure out, there's nothing better than she tattooed my leg and we got such a big chunk done in a day and a half. And I'd like to do the same, when clients are booking in, tattoos aren't cheap. Just do, bigger pieces and not lose any quality. So Sandra for me is incredible. My good friend Walter Montero,
Yeah.
He does some amazing work. He's a big inspiration as well.
Is there a style that you look at and think like that is maybe completely different to the way that you kind of create pieces and think like I can really respect that? And what would that be?
Yeah, Kenny Polk is another one of my favourite artists. He's what do you call it, neo-traditional?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
And yeah, I love his stuff. I'm going to book in to get my torso done by
I think
Kenny.
Jamie might have said Kenny Polk as well.
Yeah, Kenny's incredible. Even if I need inspiration, I'll look at Kenny's work and I can pull what I need from it and just do something in my style. Bob Mosquito's another one. There's so many to list.
Yeah.
Ad Pancho.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too many, man.
Yeah, it's nice. It's cool, man. What trends then right now in the industry? What trends are you kind of seeing that are maybe quite new that could cause disruption for the industry and the way it's heading?
I think the Mid-Journey AI images. I've seen some stuff. I saw an artist win at a New York show with. It was a Mid-Journey leg, when they weren't quite getting the faces right and it was a bit skewiff.
Yeah.
And I think they won an award from it, and I was a bit like, Mid-Journey leg. I don't know. I don't believe in just taking stuff and just copying it. I think you need to, just like a lot of the artists do now, get a reference, spend a few hours on it, do your thing with it. I think that's the correct way to use a tool like Mid-Journey. So I could see that as a possible, because if artists are slapping just stuff that's coming out of the computer, slapping it on a leg and winning awards with it, and it's getting best new style awards, I think that's a little bit worrying.
Mm-hmm. So what then would you look at and kind of value the most from an artist within tattooing? Like what is the most important thing for you to achieve? Because you're saying that's talking maybe about the design process and how people are putting these things together, but then they're winning awards. So what for you is the most respectable attribute with for a tattoo artist to have?
I think an artist that just puts the work in, whether design or flow, a bit of freehand when they're producing the tattoo. I think you can just tell. I can tell when artists have put a lot of work into doing their thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know for Sandra, for example, she looks a lot on the composition, the flow. She does a lot of overpainting. You can tell she spends time, and I think that helps her with her speed when she's tattooing, because she's already done it. She spent hours on the design. I know Walter spends a lot of time on designs. I just think
it's quite important, isn't it? It's almost like you're kind of rehearsing what you're going to do before you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way I work, I actually draw a lot of the stuff on the day, which again, I think manages to achieve that because it's so fresh in my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think just as a creatives just work differently, some people just work. Some people have to have drawn it like a week before and have sat with it and mentally kind of prepared on how they're going to do it. I work a little bit better under pressure, I think. Yeah. Is there anything that you kind of, what's your kind of mentality for like long sessions? Is there anything that you kind of do to prepare?
Good sleep. Yeah, that's super important. On the morning, started doing cold showers. That's good. Eat well throughout the day. Try not to eat too much junk.
Because the temptation, isn't there, when you haven't got like a long break. And I don't know whether other artists feel it. I definitely feel guilty sometimes stopping in the middle of the day. I feel like I have to have a quick break, get back to it again. But yeah, those habits of like not eating well kind of creep in.
Yeah, I always have. I have many breaks, a lot of short breaks. I'm always picking food to keep the energy levels up. I think a lot of breaks are good because if I'm doing a 10-hour session, I need to keep my mind and my focus as fresh as possible. I struggle with focus anyway, so yeah, just a little break and then I can go at it for another hour and a half and then another little break. I think that's, for me, that's perfectly normal to try and get my best work. Apparently, you should only work 7 hours, I hear. Maybe as I get older, I'll reduce to 7.
Yeah.
But
How do you feel like you work quite quickly? And what is your kind of preference on working days? Would you rather work these long sessions, do back-to-backs? Would you rather do, I mean, how do you work best?
Currently, I think we're always changing as artists how we want to work and how we want to prepare. It's an evolution, isn't it? But at the moment, I prefer to do 2 or 3 day sessions because colour work does take a little bit longer, and I'm more focused on quality these days, just trying to get the best result, and that sometimes does take a little bit longer. Yeah.
Nice.
2-3 day sessions. Then you get more done. You can take a photograph of the piece rather than coming back and forth. I get a lot of international clients, so sometimes it could be months in between sessions. So it'd be nice to get big chunks boxed off in a short time.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was that I was having a conversation with, where sometimes you'll kind of begin a project with a client, and then you won't see that client again for 6 months. And it's that really fine line. How do you tackle that, where you might see your style develop within those 6 months, but you can't get a client to always commit because of travel or cost or something like that. So it's always quite a fine line. And how do you deal with that? Do you only book in if they commit to a certain amount?
I try and I ask for a lot of information to start. It's like an interrogation almost. But I think you need to, every client's different, so you need to make sure they're on the same page. So I'll always say, are you want a sleeve? Yep. I'll ask a few more questions, and ideally we need to get this boxed off within 12 months.
Yeah.
And I'll organise they'll leave a big deposit, and that'll come off the last session. So there's a bit of an incentive, and I've planted the seed, and I'm you just kind of you're protecting yourself from that happening, where I've got a client who books in every sort of 3 years to finish this sleeve that I started 7 years ago. And I can quickly get into that zone where I can, I remember the time where I've designed it, and you just get into that zone with a project and you just carry on the theme. It's not ideal because, like I said, I want to box off a project within 12 months, because if people leave it longer and the ideal clients, pale skin, don't go out in the sun, but you do get some clients that do go in the sun, and then you do a fresh bit and it's not balanced. You have to go in and touch it up. So
what about, you're obviously talking about like pale skin. What is your ideal placement on the body, and what is your ideal project as well, I guess? Like, are there things that you kind of put out there? I know you kind of do a little bit of design that you want to do, but then also like a lot of it's very custom. So how are you, are clients, most of your clients kind of coming to you without a brief, and like what's your favorite thing to do?
So for placement, it's always a side of leg, so ankle to hip. I think that's a nice bit of skin. Obviously, pale skin's ideal for the colour work I do, but I can vary if darker skin clients come. I've got some really cool black work projects, high contrast. So, I don't pigeonhole myself.
Yeah.
Ideally, free reign would be perfect. But sometimes I can run with the client's idea. That's not a problem. If they're giving me too much information, I try and, I'm still learning to this day how to manage sort of clients, and
it's tricky, isn't it? Because there's no like formula.
No.
It really differs client to client.
Yeah, definitely. And something can always catch you out, which you didn't think of. So I'll try and get them to minimise the thoughts if they've overthought their initial email, and I just need a list. I think sometimes images can influence me and I can get stuck creatively. So I just ask for a list. I tell them I'm best working like this, or recently give me an emotion. I had one client in Brussels, says, she was a bit wild, she was a bit crazy, and I'm like, that's perfect, a storm. Super simple emotion. So I created a lighthouse with the storm, and then a calm, as a contrast, a calmer lady face. So I've started doing that recently, where I'll ask for maybe an emotion that you want to portray, or just a list of subjects that you'd like, and I'll pick at least one or two, and if they're okay with that, we can run with the project.
And what about turning away clients? Do you tend to find that you have to turn many clients away?
Yes, unfortunately. I try my best to get them round into thinking of the way how I work best, but I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to try and force something and I'm not be happy and they might be happy, but I wouldn't be. And I think artists produce the best work when they're really happy with the project. So I try and...
Are you ever truly happy? That's the thing, isn't it?
Can
you ever be happy with anything you produce? Because I know I'm not.
We try our best to force it into that kind of zone.
If you're enjoying the podcast this week, don't forget to leave us a rating and a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps the podcast grow.
Right, let's get on to the juicy bit, because this is the bit that I think a lot of artists want to know. Let's talk a little bit about your sponsors, and let's talk a little bit about the equipment that you use and like your go-to. I want to know kind of cartridges, machine, and all of the gory stuff.
Okay. So, machine setup. I use a Cheyenne Solnova Unlimited 3.5mm. A Cheyenne Solnova Unlimited 5mm for lines, mainly. The 3.5mm for colour packing, shading. I will have a 4mm soon. So the 4mm will be...
More for like packing.
I think so, because sometimes there was a stage where I was using a 10-year anniversary Hawk, a 2.5mm, and that's great for creating big blends. But on some skin, I was finding it just wasn't powerful enough. Like I had a South American girl in, her skin was amazing, but quite tough. Because it was slightly olivey and, as I say, a little bit tougher. So I needed a 4mm and then that flew in. And it healed perfect. So I think having 3 options, I know it sounds mad to some people, because some artists like just
one, all, for the whole
and
thing,
that's it. But I don't think there is one skin type. There's, billions of skin type. Every individual's different. And I'll spend like 10, 20 minutes just testing the skin and going through a machine, seeing which is the best one, and needle configuration as well. And I literally go from client to client, just weighing up what machines, and then I'll just get rid of 1 or 2 and I'll just use whatever's needed on that day. Needle configurations, again, I pick up this stuff from my travels. I've recently started using just a 5 shader, just as a liner and to obviously colour pack shade. Finer areas that I noticed had Pancho doing it. And just watching how he used the round shader and just filling things really quick, and it's like, okay. And then I worked with Sasha Kuzmin, and he showed me another little technique with round shaders. So I was never quite strong with that needle. Yeah. And
I don't think it's not used enough.
No.
A lot of people kind of like shy away from it. Yeah. It's liner or mag, isn't it, for a lot of people, I think. Yeah. Me included, to be fair. Maybe that's just my style, but it's definitely one of those, I think I would like to know a bit more about how to use. Yeah. What main thing did you kind of really pick up from those using those configurations?
Just low voltage. With the 5 round shader in question, it was just a little technique and low voltage and maybe a dip in water to thin down the ink a little. I think in the past I was using it higher voltage and I couldn't use it the way I wanted to. But yeah, some little bits of advice now. That's like my favourite needle. I've always got a 9 mag and a 15 mag, both curved, and maybe a 23 for big areas. And I think that's it.
Are these all Cheyenne carts as well?
Yeah, Cheyenne, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
That's all I use.
And what about your colours?
Colours, world famous. Generally, I love the opaque grey sets. The Ad Pancho pastel set, that's always a go-to. Especially good for cover-ups because it's got that blue kind of hue to it. The Poch monochromatic sets, very good. What are the greys? Is the Fanier greys? There's 3 of those.
But you've always been an opaque grey rather than a grey wash man.
Yes, I do actually. I've got a bit of an appetite now for doing some grey wash because I think when you haven't done it for that long, that's what I started to do when I was an apprentice. and for the next few years. But I would like to do a few odd pieces in grey wash again. Just, you know, just to brush up your skills. Even though I think when you don't do that style or use those inks, I'm still watching people and still remembering stuff and techniques. So the level will be even better when I do it now. So I'm excited to do some of that in the future.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, you should, man. I'll be excited to see it.
Quick one about the podcast sponsor, Ghost Cartridges. So Ghost Cartridges are a tattoo cartridge and accessory brand and online retailer. Founded in 2017, they're known for their innovative products and they're supported by thousands of artists and customers worldwide.
I guess this is actually quite a good time for me to give you the question left for you by the previous guest.
Okay.
Don't look too nervous. The question for you was,
if tattooing was never a thing, what would your art look like?
That's a really good question. You know what? I might not have ever produced art if I hadn't have got into tattooing. I could, non-existent, possibly. Yeah, because the tattooing got me interested because it's a job you can get into straight away, and then after a few years you think, how far can I take this? And then you want to get really good. And then as an addition to that, that's going to help with colour for me is painting. I've always wanted to oil paint, but I've never kind of procrastinated. I've procrastinated a lot and never got around to doing it. So I think tattooing's helped me get into my painting again, so I could pick up some extra skills with colour theory. So yeah, the answer would be non-existent. I might not have ever got back into art if it wasn't for tattooing.
yeah, it's crazy to think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, as he said when he asked the question as well, is some tattoo artists find themselves drawing for tattoos, you know, and drawing and creating pieces for a client to appreciate and enjoy, or are they drawing it because it's innately what they want to create, you know? And I think that's a really interesting concept. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I designed to make the most badass tattoo ever, and, you know, wow factor. I want to always try and create something different, something eye-catching. And then when I'm thinking of a painting, because I've got a lot of ideas in my head, it'll come out soon, whether it be this year or next year. I'm doing another workshop with Henrik next month.
Yeah.
I did one last year. And yeah, I was painting nearly every day, and then that fades off when you got conventions and you're busy with your tattoo design work. So
what can people expect to see from you then over the next few years?
I think this 3D style, which I'm going to get stuck into, it's going to be very different. Even doing a one-on-one seminar with Tofi and learning what you can do, even with like a day's knowledge, is just, I'm thinking of, you know, since then I've just thinking of stuff and concepts. I've got loads ready to come out. It's just opened my mind in what different stuff can be achieved rather than just on that flat 2D level. So yeah, just really random, quirky, different stuff I'm going to start producing in the next few years, and hopefully this painting thing's going to stick, so I can start doing some good oil paintings too.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to see it. This sort of question of where do you see the industry going is one which I find kind of really interesting, and I feel like it's maybe not necessarily where, at least in the immediate future, where we're going to see massive advancements necessarily in the equipment that we're using, but it most likely in the referencing, like you say, with AI. Is that kind of where you can kind of really see the industry itself heading?
Yeah, and there's going to be 3D AI. So yeah, get ready for that. Yeah, I think it's going to go nuts with AI. And there's obviously going to be the people that use it and do their thing with it, and then people that use it and just bang it out just quick. But I think people will be able to see that and make judgment, you know, like the question before about, you know, what makes me appreciate these artists, and it's artists that put in the work. And for me, I can see that a mile off from whatever the post.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we'll keep doing what you're doing, man. Do you have a question that you want to leave for the next guest?
I do, yeah. I was going to say, where the last 5 years of your tattoo career, what can you see yourself doing and where? So that could be in a different country, or, you know, your last 5 years, where would you like to be?
Okay. Whether you mean in other countries and stuff
in other
like
countries, and what would you like to be doing with it? Whether it be you stop tattooing and you're painting, or you're still tattooing, and maybe what style you'd like to go for.
Nice. Yeah, I like that.
I probably haven't worded it that well.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's perfect. Yeah, sweet, man. So kind of just drawing it all to a close, I know that you have got this collaboration coming up with Bint at Brighton this year.
Yep.
Looking back at, like, you won Best of Show and Best Large Tattoo at Titanic Tattoo.
Yeah, Titanic.
And at the London Convention, Best of Show collab with Ryan Smith.
Yeah, in 2019.
That was 2019. Yeah. What conventions are you going to be at this year, if any? And where can kind of people expect to see you at guest spots or conventions?
Shall I get my list out?
Go on, then.
Too much to remember. So I'm kicking off the year next weekend. I'll be in Milan at Tattoo Army. I've never done that show before, so it's run by the same guy who does the big Milan show.
Yeah.
So really,
is that the Milan Expo? Is it?
Yeah. It's usually on February, but I think they've swapped months. So Tattoo Army next week, followed by Brighton end of the month. Then Frankfurt, Mickey Violetto's new show in Frankfurt in April. May, I'm possibly doing Verona. I want to do more Italian shows this year because my girlfriend speaks Italian.
Okay.
And it makes it so much easier getting around. I like to do shows that people recommend, and I've heard the Krakow show in June is really good in Poland, so I'm going to try that this year. August, Deauville in France. I think Ryan and we won Best of Show last time we did that. That was 2018. Stockholm, I've never done before.
God, this is a lot to do in here, isn't it?
I'm going to do this in September. Then Ibiza, I've been asked to judge this year. It's my favourite place, as probably everybody knows, Ibiza.
Yeah.
Marmaris, possibly, October.
Ardems, yeah.
Paris, haven't announced dates yet. Brussels in November, and there's a Cologne elite guest spot, but they've turned it into a mini convention this time around. So yeah, I like to plan and then worry about it after.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite of your conventions that you've done so far? And what is the kind of the real difference that you might see, sort of convention to convention, like in different countries compared to the UK?
You know what? I love them all in different ways. So, like Marmaris last year was high energy. The crowd there was just, like I say, high energy. People were buzzing. People are interested. They wanted pictures with you, which I still find weird and odd. Why would they want a picture with me? But there was just more interest in the tattoos. Everybody wanted to know, the questions throughout the day.
Yeah.
What are you using here? What's that for? Taking a video. What app are you using? It was full on. And the awards were good. There was just, it was busy, and it was fun. There was a lot of the organisers, props to them. I did a lot for the artists on the evenings, parties, boat parties, excursions. So that was super fun. My favourite conventions, obviously the London Tattoo Convention. Obviously the last one was 2019.
Yeah.
And you've got all these big artists coming from abroad, and there's just a different buzz, a different anticipation when you started. You used to have a little, a kind of a gift pack, and you open the box, and you don't really get that at many shows, and it's just a nice touch.
Yeah.
And just walking around and you're bumping into Nico and Steve Butcher, and just artists you don't see often at the European shows, and it just had a different feel to it. Similar to Paris. Paris is nice. First year I did Paris, you had a lovely little gift pack, and you had a little award just for participation. They just and the attention to detail in the French conventions is insane. Even the branding on the beer mugs or coffee cups is just different level. But I could talk for hours about each show and what good things I like about them. So the different episodes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've only ever done UK ones. I mean, there's always quite a vibe, I don't know, being biased, but I feel like the UK.
Try the European ones, but it's different. I mean, for your style, if you're getting a lot of attention or work off the back of that, then fantastic. But I found over the years with my style, the European shows are more suited to it and appreciate it more.
Why is that, do you think? Do you think there's as much of a client base in the UK for colour work maybe at the moment? I don't know. Obviously within your...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do get a lot of English clients. I get a bigger percentage of English clients than I do abroad, but I still get, I don't know, maybe 30-40% come from abroad who are a bit more open to an abstract surrealism style. So I think the enthusiasm for tattoos in my style is different. I've noticed abroad, like Turkey, for example, mental, never seen it at that level. Belgium, so many tattoo enthusiasts. You go to Brussels and it's a big show and it's rammed. Yeah. And I'll always do Brussels show every year just because it's busy. I get so much work from it. And and the Italian shows as well.
I'll have to look into going down there for sure.
Got to get yourself over it. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, it's been great, man. I'm really excited to see where you're kind of going to take it, So, I just wanted to thank you really for being on it and being a part of it. It's been great to kind of sit and pick your brain just a little bit, I could sit here and talk to you for ages. But it's very interesting to hear how you got into it at such a late stage and have achieved so much in that time. So, just keep doing what you're doing and congratulations. You're an inspiration for me and I think a lot of other artists as well.
Thank you very much. No, I appreciate you getting me on.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for being a part of it.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Thank you.
For the end, what we're going to do, and this is now a tradition in season 2, we have got a good old-fashioned pen and paper drawing challenge today.
Okay.
We've got a piece of A5 paper, you've got a BIC, you've got a HB, a 2B, and a 1/2 mil fine liner. And to make matters even more difficult for you, I'm going to be giving you some quick-fire general knowledge questions. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to draw an Art Nouveau duffel bag. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. What do you call a group of jellyfish?
A group of jellyfish.
What are the names of Harry Potter's parents?
Hogwarts and Dumbledore.
Who plays Tommy Shelby in Peaky Blinders?
Oh, I know this one. Scarecrow from Batman.
How many legs does a lobster have?
4.
You've got a draw as well.
Oh shit! Yeah. Forgot about that.
What is the best-selling book of all time?
Harry Potter.
In which century did Leonardo da Vinci paint The Last Supper? Two minutes left.
Pass.
How many Academy Awards did 1994 film Forrest Gump win?
5.
Which French artist, born in 1834, was best known for his paintings of ballet dancers?
Pass.
In 1995, the first ever item sold on eBay went for $14.83. What was it?
A douche.
In the decathlon, out of the 10 events, how many are held on a running track?
Decathlon. Oh man. 1.
Minute and a half left. Gary and Martin Kemp were in what band?
Oh shit, I know this one.
Is it a pass?
Yeah, it's a pass.
Who sang Unchained Melody?
I don't know.
Which UK act won the Eurovision Song Contest in 1981? 1 minute left. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, go on.
Which UK act won the Eurovision Song Contest in 1981?
Oh, pass.
Which sign of the zodiac is represented by the scales?
Libra.
What is the longest bridge in Great Britain?
Thames Bridge.
Who is the voice of Shrek?
Mike Myers.
What famous man became president of his country after being in jail for 18 years?
President of his country. Nelson Mandela.
In which country did the mojito cocktail originate? 30 seconds
Mexico.
left. In what country would you find Shrewsbury? County, not country.
Shropshire.
What is the strongest sense in humans?
Smell.
In what year was the first PlayStation console released? 10 seconds.
2003.
Which is the largest landlocked county in the UK?
Landlocked.
Yeah, that's it. Time up. Put your pen down.
Ah, that's really cruel. That is.
It's good. So I will have a look in a second. I would like you to leave for the next guest a subject matter and a style to draw.
Style. Okay, let's go Chicano.
Chicano. And your subject matter?
Popeye.
Popeye. Okay, nice. Love it.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man.
You're welcome.
It's been great. If you could sign and date that and print your name, that would be amazing. But yeah, thanks again. Cheers, mate.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast this week. Don't forget to hit the bell icon and the follow button wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to head over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button as well. Really helps the podcast grow. And thank you so much for all the support so far. I'm Alex Lloyd, and this is a 21st Century Tattoo. Thanks for listening.
An Art Nouveau duffel bag. So, are you ready? Let me get the timer.
Hang on, Art Nouveau. What the